Hey, you. Thanks for stopping by. This is not a drill. I repeat, this is not a drill. What I have in front of me is indeed the book of Beck herself, straight from the production of Netflix's You. I took Instagram and Reddit by storm when I formally announced that I obtained this prop, and as you can imagine, the fanbase shared my excitement. This has been a very long time in the making, and after a long back and forth with numerous time gaps in between, I eventually thought that I may have to accept that this was going to happen, but that's when life surprises you. I've said this numerous times before, and I'll gladly say it again. You is my all-time favorite show in the world, and this is an honor that I don't see being topped anytime soon. The fact that I've had the privilege of actually being able to hold Beck's book and carry it around with me everywhere I go, knowing that it's not fan-made or a digital fake-out, but an authentic artifact by the show's prop masters, is surreal. And after reading the content of it, you are all about to experience a review of The Dark Face of Love for the first time ever. Before we get into the contents of the book though, first let's talk about the prop itself. My particular copy is specifically from the production of Season 5, the show's final run. As you know, in that, we ended up getting the new edition at the end, which scraps all of Joel's contributions to the book. I was actually given the option between either the new edition or the original, and I went with the latter purely out of personal preference. From the source that got me this, it was either used or on standby to be used during the gas station scene of the series finale. So unfortunately, to my prop fiends, I can't 100% confirm that this is screen matched. The only thing that's for certain is that it's from the production, so it's production made. Though there is a small chance that it was on screen. Another interesting thing to note about this book is that based on the details inside of it, it is not depicted as a first edition from the original batch of the book's release. What I mean by that is, canonically, this book is from a later production line. Like, let's say Beck's book sold out entirely, so they printed more copies. Or something happened in universe, so they updated the book to keep the current releases relevant to the present, such as an update on her case. To be more specific, one of the first things in the book is a preface written by Blythe, stating how the reader either bought the book because it was a bestseller in 2019 when it was released, or because of quote-unquote recent headlines. And since the book was produced during the Season 5 timeline, I'm guessing it may have been a special edition released either after the investigation with Bronte and friends blew up, or during the trial of Joe Goldberg. I don't think it was after his conviction, because by that point, we would have gotten the new edition, and the preface never mentions him by name, likely due to legal reasons. So that's quite an insight about my copy. It's specific to Season 5, but folks from the production watching this, or anyone else that happens to have a Season 1 original, please hit me up. I'd love to get my hands on that and compare the two. Naturally, the question I'm going to get the most about this book is what's inside it, or whether or not there's an actual story written. Obviously, based on what I just shared with you, there are proper book elements between the covers. After Blythe's preface comes the story, of course. So I'm excited to share what I've read and how far that goes. With that being said, the review starts now. The first thing that stands out about this book is its format. Is it a bunch of short stories, a collection of poems, or one long narrative? The answer is all of those things. Everything the show mentions about the book is true. Essentially, it serves as an autobiography, while also consisting of separate stories and poems that are relevant to the narrative behind Beck's memoir. You have Beck telling her real-life story, from childhood to the very end of her life, with the poems putting a more figurative spin on those topics, and the stories which are intended to be more fictional, I'm guessing, exploring those themes more broadly, in a hypothetical sense. The poems seem to be Beck speaking from the heart, while the stories either take it up a notch or look at it from a different perspective. And then the actual chapters of the book is the body that everything is mainly centered around. For example, you have Bluebeard's Castle in there as a poem, and right up that alley would be a short about something that Bluebeard's Castle touches on, like the beast or the princess. You can either see them as connected or as standalone from one another. Speaking of Bluebeard's Castle, if you want the perfect one-sentence explanation for what the Dark Face of Love explores, think of Bluebeard's Castle. If Bluebeard's Castle were an entire novel instead of just one poem. That poem in particular basically summarizes Beck's whole life story as it pertains to the show, and then some. Every element of that poem is fleshed out on at some point in the book. So, more about her when she was younger, more about her dad, her choices in men, her friend group, I mean everything. It's not only her magnum opus, it's also the most self-reflection she's ever done. And you can really see that throughout the book. It starts soft, like she's still in the thinking phase, asking herself who she is, and then the deeper it gets, the more we reflect with her. Interestingly enough, though, what that does is create a back and forth. And the at least 3 different formats that the book carries really helps execute it well so that it doesn't feel like you're reading a different book every time you turn the page. It's her justifying her actions, explaining why she is who she is, or just wanting someone to hear her, versus a version of herself that is full of contempt and resentment towards that caricature. It's almost like there's 2 voices writing the pages. And while Beck's voice is effective, the other voice has a way of making sure you don't empathize with her too much, because regardless of what side you resonate with most, she is who she is, and that's what's being examined under a microscope. Eventually, all of that back and forth leads to something of a disorientation, after growing firm about a few things that were still left up in the air earlier in the book, and outright agreeing with the opposing narrative of some of the short stories, while also vehemently contradicting those elements, seemingly with frustration. At some point, Beck's lines start to blur. Either she circles back and becomes a more broken down version of herself that didn't know what her deal was when she started out, or she's struggling to reach a conclusion by accepting a truth that she doesn't want to actually live by. It's the same ordeal as the rising action and eventual climax of Bluebeard's Castle, accepting that Bluebeard and Prince Charming are one and the same, while recounting that this is what she asked for, and telling herself to come to terms with that. One thing's for certain though, the double voice starts to really differentiate from one another despite also being really at odds. I believe this is where the Dr. Nikki narrative comes into play, in the form of Beck's struggle to go along with the truth behind his offenses against her. This is attested by the themes of the book that explore the concept of going along with the truth of others that may be considered a lie in your own worldview, much like the line in Bluebeard that says to say anything but the truth. But then, of course, the book ends. I won't say too much about how exactly it ends, but in the words of Blythe in the show, she says that Beck was illuminating her own imminent murder, so that should give you an idea. And now that I've read this book about a character that I have a very complicated relationship with, even being driven to rewatch her season of the show, I want to take a moment to revisit how I feel about Beck after having this rare opportunity to go receive all of this insight that the book offers. I'm going to compare my stance on Beck with Love for a moment, just to paint a picture, so bear with me. In Love's case, I love the character, but I also lost respect for the character. Both in the books and the show, the character shows tremendous potential, but then there's a radical character shift, and then suddenly, it feels like the character you connected with isn't that same character anymore, but instead a very devolved version. Anyone who's either read You Love Me after reading Hidden Bodies, or can at least see the drastic difference between Season 3 love versus Season 2 love, should know what I'm talking about. The thing about Love is that while I lost respect for the character, the blame is mostly on her. When it comes to Beck, however, I never had any respect for the character, but she's harder to blame for why that respect isn't there. Do I understand her? Yes. Do I empathize with her? For the most part, yeah. I mean, we can clearly see why she is who she is and how she got there. The same can't be said for Love. It kind of comes out of nowhere, and that's kind of why you lose respect, because you're left with questions such as, where is this all coming from? But with Beck, you at least have that insight. All that's left is a push and pull between what's holding her back and whether or not she truly wanted to overcome that. And you have to take Jo out of the equation when thinking about it, because she didn't know everything that there was to know about Jo until the very, very tail end of their tenure. If you think that you're doing wrong by someone who's good to you, and then it turns out later that said someone isn't as good as you thought they were, it doesn't change the fact that you believed you were doing that person wrong and still chose to do it. So that's why I mostly lean towards not liking Beck, but I'm still highly ambivalent about it because that's just the nature of the character and how well written she is. Another thing that I want to revisit after reading this book is the Dr. Nikki situation. I made a video about my most controversial opinion surrounding Jo Goldberg, which is that Jo's love is real. A lot of people believe that because he stalks and commits murder, that he's not capable of love. And I think that's incorrect. He still carries the emotion for love like everyone else. It's just not orthodox. On my Patreon, I made a video about my most controversial Beck opinion, which is that she's not a victim of abuse by Dr. Nikki. The first season of the show actually supports this. It wasn't until Beck needed an alibi to help her escape from Jo that she decided to run with the narrative that Dr. Nikki took advantage of her. The entire reason the Dark Face of Love exists is because she needed a way out. And this was her way of trying to convince Jo that they were on the same page. Even when she explains to Jo why she cheated, it had nothing to do with the power imbalance from her therapist. It was purely her own personal issues stemming from childhood and past relationships that she never worked out, which would have happened with or without a therapist pulling the strings. Did he get charged for malpractice and have his license revoked? Yes, and I think that was the right call, because he did do a misdeed, but it didn't make Beck less of a cheater. People use that to absolve Beck of all wrongdoing, painting her as more of a victim than she saw herself as, and I think that's also incorrect. You are all more than welcome to completely disagree with me on that, and I completely accept and respect that. It's my most controversial opinion about her for a reason. So that's my review, what I thought of the book and where I stand after reading it. But disclaimer, I have to inform you all that The Dark Face of Love isn't a story that's actually been properly written. So don't fall for anything online claiming to be Beck's book unless you hear it from official sources like Netflix or Caroline Kepnes. You see, years ago, there was a book that went live on Amazon claiming to be the real deal, and it was taken down immediately after people had already spent their money on it because its contents was actually just a plagiarism of an entirely different book with Beck's cover on it, which was a very obvious failed attempt at recreating the design. Does what I have include original, never-before-seen works from the show? Yes, this wasn't a prank, but first and foremost, it serves the intended purpose of a prop above all else. The content inside of it is ultimately just to make it more authentic for on-screen use. So like for during scenes where Bronte is reading the book and notices something Beck wouldn't write herself, chances are the actress, Madeline Brewer, is actually reading the book on camera. The fact that there's actually text on the pages for her to read makes it more authentic than if she was just staring at a blank page, pretending to read. That's the powerful difference a well-detailed prop can make. If it happens to fall into the hands of a fan, which it has, then in that case, it also serves as bonus details for said fan to geek out over, which I've been doing since it came in the mail. However, to the U fans, to the Beck stands, and Elizabeth Lale droolers that have been wanting to read this book since its inception, is there still hope for its official release? Is it within the realm of possibility, even? Actually, let's be more direct. Is it going to happen? Well, as someone with sources and inside connections, stay tuned. That is all that I can say at this time. But there may come a time where I'm able to say a lot more, and if you wish to be kept in the loop when that's the case, then hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications. It's free, doesn't cost anything. Too long, so I scammed version of this is that the book only exists as a prop as of right now, but that could change in the future. If you're wondering why I didn't do too much opening of the book on screen, it's because I am saving that for a Patreon video. So if you want to actually see everything that's inside, that's the place to be. Otherwise, I'm going to keep a few of the things in the book to myself. Please don't hate me for that. Anywho, thank you all so much for watching, and to the person from the show that made this dream a reality. You know who you are, and I can't thank you enough. I'm going to leave you all with a question, and that's if you got a chance to pick out any prop from your favorite show to take home with you, what would it be? Please let me know in the comment section down below. I practically got mine already, and I'm expecting more copies in the near future, but if I were to pick another prop from you, it would be either a Mooney's apron or the Spencer Hewitt hat. I'd also even settle for a Mooney's bookmark. And trust me, I wouldn't let them collect dust. I'd wear them proudly. Until next time, goodbye.